Hi everyone, it's Steve with Delta Systems. I wanted to walk through probably an email some of you are getting about this important updates on Google Analytics, data retention, and the General Data Protection Regulation. Sounds pretty official. So kind of a big deal in Europe that it's all about protecting user data, and basically what this is saying is that Google Analytics is going to allow data to rot out of your Google Analytics account. Now before you freak out, that's not as big of a deal as you think. If I actually hop over to Google and I look up what they're talking about, this is the data retention policy. It's in their Google Analytics help area, and they're basically saying that these settings will take effect on May 25th, 2018. You can choose how long the data is retained before they delete it. Let me make it a little bigger here. And so basically you could say it's going to expire 14 months, 26 months, or do not expire automatically. And then there's an interesting option for it says reset on new activity. So in a nutshell, basically this is saying if someone comes to your site and they're using data to track that individual user, which you're using with your Google AdWords or some other tracking software, that this data will rot after this amount of time. So if they don't come visit your site after this many months, that data will go away, unless you change it to do not automatically expire. Now the interesting part about reset on new activity is basically saying, hey, when they do come back, reset it again. So they have a great example in here. It says if data retention is set to 14 months, but a user comes in every month, then that user identified is refreshed every month and it never reaches the 14-month expiry. So basically, this is if people haven't visited you in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, then that data can be expired out. And if you don't want that to happen, certainly you need to go in and change those things. A lot of you don't need to change that, so that's a good thing. So let's talk about what the defaults are. Let me hop into a Google Analytics account. This is my mom's account, and so for her website, please go visit theheritagelady.com. If you go down to admin here, you'll get into your settings, and under the property setting, you'll have tracking info, all of these things. Actually, I was going to show you that in a minute. Let me go back to property settings, and let me talk about, go back to tracking info and go to data retention. So that's what we're talking about here. So let me go in here under property, tracking info, data retention is where this is. These are the defaults that they're giving you. So they're basically saying, hey, after 26 months, if somebody hasn't visited your site, we're going to get rid of that data. But you're still going to be able to see the reporting data because it says these controls do not affect most standard reports, which is based on aggregate data. So you're still going to see your pretty charts and graphs and your lines and all of this. You're just not going to get individual identifiable information when you're actually digging through the rest of your reports. Again, for most of you, if that's not important, not a big deal. So, but if it is a big deal, you certainly can go and change that. And again, go to admin, then you go to tracking info, data retention, and you can change this. Now again, most of our clients, this is going to be great. This is basically says if somebody doesn't visit you in 2 years, then let that data rot. But if somebody does come back within that 2 years, then it will actually reset and allow them 2 more years into the future. So I wouldn't change these settings for most sites. If you do want to keep that, you just come down here to do not automatically expire, hit save, and then it's going to keep all the details for you forever. So I'm going to switch this back because I don't really care on this site. So I'm going to go back there. And then while I got your attention, I want to point out another thing that we commonly see in a lot of different places when we go to views, the view in the Google Analytics. Let's click on the view settings. And let's do a couple things. One, we want to make sure we're tracking HTTP or HTTPS. If your website is not HTTPS, which is secure, give us a call because that needs to happen. You also need to come down here and check this box. It says exclude all hits from known bots and spiders. And if you're using something like WordPress or a common system where you can track these types of things, turn on site search tracking and put the letter S in there because that's how Google does it. That's how WordPress does it. And if you hit save, now it'll actually pull off the people that are searching your site. That's a rare instance. Most people use Google to search your site. They don't use search on your site. But again, this will pull off that data in a nicer way if you do need to or want to see it that way. Another thing you're going to want to make sure that you're tracking for here is if you go into the actual property itself, and you want to make sure you have turned on under property and then property settings, turn on automatic enable demographics and interests, enhance link attribution should be on as well, which would be great, and then enable user metrics and reports. Turning both of these on will allow information over here in your audience section to light up. So if you go down here under audience and demographics and like overview, if you don't see stuff like this, it'll say, hey, you need to enable this. That is where you get that information. So you get their interests and other information out of that. So this may or may not be useful to you, but certainly collecting it and finding out what's important to your users certainly could help, especially on e-commerce sites. So to sum up, pretty much data retention, the defaults they're picking are good for you. Most of you, you don't really have to do anything, but we wanted to make you aware of what this means and what's going on with this new data retention policy from Google. Problems or questions, give us a call at deltasys.com. Thanks.